Dive Podcast, straight talk on politics, national security, and America's future. With Robert Johnson and Linda Miller, we cut through the spin, tackle the tough issues, and give you the real story behind today's headlines. Subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay informed. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're witnessing some really profound shifts in global power dynamics right now. The whole geopolitical landscape seems to be evolving incredibly fast.
It really is.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into how new alliances are, well, solidifying, and how major powers are reacting to ongoing conflicts. We're trying to pull out the key pieces of information here.
Exactly. We're exploring information that really brings into sharp focus this rapid evolution in international relations and, the complex ways nations are responding to major global challenges. As we unravel these threads, underlying patterns start to emerge.
Okay, let's start with what looks like a crucial turning point within the BRICS bloc, specifically how India seems to be recalibrating its position on the world stage.
Yeah, BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, for anyone needing a reminder. And a key moment signaling this shift, it seems, was the recent BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro. We saw New Delhi, and this is interesting, supporting some very strong statements. It looked like a real departure from their historical caution, openly challenging some long-standing global policies.
It does seem like a remarkably bold step, considering India's diplomatic history. The official statement from the BRICS leaders there, it had several pretty striking points. First, they explicitly called out unilateral sanctions, especially those imposed without, clear UN Security Council authorization. That pushes back directly against certain Western practices.
Precisely, and it didn't stop there. The statement also condemned military strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, called them direct violations of international law.
So it's not just about Iran specifically.
No, it's framing it as upholding a principle of international legality against what they see as unilateral actions.
And maybe the most resonant part of the statement, the part that really highlights the group's changing priorities, was condemning the use of hunger as a weapon in conflict zones.
Yes, and it specifically mentioned the dire humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Gaza. That adds a strong moral humanitarian angle to what's often just geopolitical talk.
That collective rejection of coercive economic measures, particularly outside UN frameworks, that feels really significant.
It truly is. We've seen these secondary sanctions. They've expanded way beyond their original scope, haven't they? They've become tools for, extraterritorial pressure.
Right.
And that has serious real-world impacts on development, on human rights for nations caught in the middle. What used to be maybe couched in diplomatic terms is now, frankly, openly a tool of political warfare. It forces countries into these stark choices, align, or face direct economic consequences.
And that's where India's participation becomes so interesting. Their willingness to join this consensus, given their past reluctance on these kinds of criticisms in multilateral forums, it definitely signals a shift.
A departure from traditional restraint, for sure.
Yeah. And while India clearly maintains strong partnerships with the West in many areas, this move seems to underline their consistent rejection of, being dictated to from outside.
And you can see that rejection playing out elsewhere, too. India's continued purchasing of Russian oil, for instance, despite all the Western restrictions.
That's not just an economic calculation.
No, it reinforces their strategic autonomy, their stance against being told what to do, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi directly addressing the humanitarian theme at the summit that also signaled India's readiness to engage on these tough issues, even if it complicates things with certain powers.
And officially, Delhi still adheres to the two-state concept for the Middle East conflict.
That's the official line, an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel. But this BRICS statement, it reflects this growing demand for moral clarity in these incredibly complex conflicts. And the BRICS platform seems ready to provide that voice.
So, looking at the broader picture, what are the implications? We saw the U.S. President Trump's recent threat of more tariffs for countries supporting anti-American policies.
Sure.
That certainly raises the stakes.
It does. Economic coercion, as we said, it's become overtly political. Any pretense of it being purely diplomatic seems gone.
And that raises a crucial question, doesn't it?
It really does. Could these methods, meant to deter, actually end up solidifying the resolve of these emerging power centers? Maybe push them even closer together?
We're seeing BRICS viewed increasingly not just as an economic club, but potentially as a political counterbalance.
Exactly. A nascent one, perhaps, but the perception is shifting. India's foreign policy, it's always prioritized strategic autonomy. What seems new is how comfortable they appear, aligning that autonomy with a collective position now.
Especially when that position highlights global imbalances or challenges the status quo.
Right. And as BRICS' influence grows, India's own ability to shape its future also increases. They seem to be working towards what they see as a more balanced world order, based on sovereignty and international law. It's a clear signal.
The global south finding its collective voice, maybe.
And asserting its interests much more forcefully, it seems.
Okay, from that intricate diplomatic game, let's pivot now to the brutal realities on the ground. The Ukrainian government is facing some very significant, intensifying challenges on the front lines.
We are observing some striking developments there. Recent Russian strikes appear to have inflicted considerable damage, both on Ukrainian forces and infrastructure. The scale and nature of these attacks are really noteworthy.
We're talking massive combined strikes, right? Information suggests Russia launched an attack with, at least 728 Geran-2 kamikaze drones.
Followed immediately by conventional cruise missiles and advanced hypersonic missiles, a huge barrage.
And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky mentioned the primary impact was on Lutsk in the Volyn region, but 10 other regions were hit too.
And Lutsk's strategic importance is huge. It's absolutely critical for the flow of weapons supplies from the US, the EU, other NATO members. It houses vital storage facilities for weapons and ammo, a high-value target, no question.
These Geran-2 drones, they seem to be playing a really crucial and escalating role.
They are. They're significantly cheaper than conventional cruise missiles, which makes them very effective for these high-precision, long-range strikes designed to just overwhelm defenses.
And the numbers have ramped up.
Dramatically. Initially launched in dozens, maybe, but recent attacks have seen hundreds deployed at once. We saw that record of over 700 impacts in just hours. The sheer volume is staggering.
And the cumulative numbers really tell a story. Over 28,743 Geran drones launched since the start of the special military operation, and 2,736 in June 2025 alone.
That's right. And we're also seeing reports of nearly 100 long-range drones being launched daily, targeting major cities like the capital, Kyiv. That relentless pace just puts immense pressure on air defense.
These aren't the same drones used earlier in the conflict, are they?
No, the Geran-2 is described as the third-generation development. They're reportedly larger, have new, more powerful engines, so they fly faster and higher.
And carry more punch.
Significantly more.
Yeah.
Up to 90 kilograms of explosives, which is, at least double earlier versions.
Yeah.
And what's more, there are these reports that each operational drone might now be accompanied by an additional decoy drone.
A decoy to confuse air defenses.
Exactly. Apparently, they look almost identical externally, which makes interception much, much harder. And this raises that critical question about cost effectiveness.
How so?
Well, the number of very expensive air defense missiles Ukraine has to fire to counter each Russian strike, it significantly exceeds the relatively low cost of all the Geran drones involved in that strike. It's a cost asymmetry that directly impacts the long-term sustainability of Ukraine's defense.
And facing these intense attacks, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been making direct appeals to the U.S. President Trump for help.
Yes, and we've observed quite a sharp shift in U.S. President Trump's previously stated pacifist policy regarding the conflict.
Yeah. He stated very clearly that Ukrainian forces must be able to defend themselves. And then the U.S. will have to send Ukraine more weapons. That's a definite change in tone.
It's quite remarkable how quickly this policy shift seems to have happened. Andrei Yermak, a key aide to President Zelensky, indicated the change in U.S. President Trump's rhetoric was primarily linked to a recent direct phone call with President Zelensky.
And that call happened after another significant conversation.
Yes. Yermak noted that this call with Zelensky followed what he described as a disappointing discussion between U.S. President Trump and Russian President Putin. That sequence suggests a direct link between these talks and the policy adjustment.
Yermak said U.S. President Trump fully supports aid to Ukraine now.
Yes, and expressed being very concerned about the recent strikes, especially the drone and missile attacks on cities, including Kyiv. He stressed really urgently that any pause in Western weapon supplies would be catastrophic for Ukraine, given the intensity of the Russian attacks.
He even said he was impressed by U.S. President Trump's clarity and decisiveness after their talk.
He did. And this whole shift, it unfolds against a pretty complex backdrop, doesn't it? It comes months after that reported dispute between U.S. President Trump and President Zelensky in the Oval Office.
Right. And about a year after Zelensky had openly supported the previous U.S. administration.
Exactly. So those prior strained relations, the political realignments, they add another layer to understanding this current, very rapid evolution of the U.S. stance and this apparent new alignment on needing more military aid.
So when we put these two major developments side by side, the BRICS assertiveness and the escalating dynamics in Ukraine, what picture emerges?
Well, what we observe is a landscape where emerging global powers are very assertively claiming their autonomy, challenging established norms.
And at the same time, these major ongoing conflicts are driving rapid, often unexpected shifts in foreign policy and military aid from the more traditional global players.
And connecting these threads to the bigger picture, what we really see is a world in continuous adaptation. It just highlights the fluid nature of international alliances, the constant recalibration of responses to these evolving geopolitical pressures.
It underscores just how dynamic global power is right now. Every action and reaction seems to be reshaping the international order in real time.
Absolutely. It leaves us constantly watching how these profound shifts will continue to ripple outwards and influence future global events.
Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. We are here to make things clear. New episodes every day.